Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today I'm going to do a topic which is a little bit connected to what I did yesterday. And yesterday I talked about Marvel's hiring practices and Disney's hiring practices. And it got me thinking about the way that Marvel is structured and how its hiring practices indicate how it actually works and what it's actually producing. And I came to the conclusion, and I think I presented some good evidence over just not that video, but a number of my other videos that I referenced, that, what Marvel is doing right now with their comics, they're not fumbling the ball. They're actually producing exactly what they want to produce. And the thing is that, as I said, and I'll go over it quickly so I don't bore you about doing it so many times, that Marvel is part of Disney. Disney is a multi-platform advertising campaigner, and so all of their different sections of Disney are just a section that pushes towards a main product. And for the Marvel comics, it's just an advertising tool to push you towards the movies, which are their big money makers for the comic book heroes. So it's not actually something in itself. And so I was combining that in my thoughts with something else that happened over the last week, and Diversity in Comics did a video on it. I'll probably put the link in the description for Diversity in Comics one so you can look at what I'm talking about. But there was a major person in Marvel. He's one of the higher ups in Marvel, and he was tweeting about going to see Crazy Rich Asians, that movie that came out just over the last week. And he said he really liked it, but he liked it because it was funny and it was had a bit of romance in it. He didn't like it because of the rich aspect of it, because he is a socialist and he actually hates money, and by extension, of course, hates rich people. But literally said he's a socialist. He hates money. All right. And everybody is saying, how in the world can you have a company that employs people like this? And DNC himself was asking, well, you can't fire somebody just because they're a socialist, but you can fire somebody because they're not handling your money correctly. And this person obviously is not handling money correctly because he doesn't care about money. Why would they still keep him on? And this all feeds into something which I've been seeing over the last little while. And it's the fact that most of the YouTubers out there, most of the people who are comic skaters, most of the people who are doing reviews of comics and discussing them, they're still thinking about the comic book industry, and especially Marvel Comics, as it used to be. They're still thinking about it as if it were a small little company that was run and was intent on making money for itself and making products that were good for it as a company, and thus were listening to their customers. They're still thinking about Marvel in that kind of way. And they have to realize, and a few of them I think have realized, that you can't think about Marvel that way anymore. It has not been that way for a while now. As soon as Disney bought Marvel, it became something completely different. It is not a company that has a vested interest in itself anymore. Its vested interest is now in the larger Disney company and making Disney money. And so that is why it doesn't matter about their content. I would say their content is deliberate, and it's deliberate so that they can feed into the movies, and they're not actually fumbling the ball. They're not actually fumbling anything with what they're doing, and their sales, it doesn't matter if their sales are going down. They're doing what they're directed to do, and what is feeding into the larger idea and the larger plan for Disney as a company. And so it's not this small little thing anymore. You can't think about it as this small little company anymore, this independent company that was working for itself. And everybody has to get out of that mindset. It is part of this giant corporation that is Disney. And these are the analogies that came to my mind while I was thinking about this. Okay, if you look at Disney as a company, it is a large multinational corporation, billion-dollar corporation. It has more money and more influence than a lot of small countries. That is how giant this multinational corporation is. All right? So you think about it in those terms. That's what Disney is. It is the equivalent of a country in some way. in some of its aspects. I mean, it doesn't have land and it doesn't have these things that we traditionally would think of as a country, but it is, think of it as if it were a country. All right, so if you think of Disney itself as if it were a country, because it does actually have that much money and have that much influence, then you think about all of the smaller sections of Disney, like Marvel Studios, like Marvel Entertainment, all of these other smaller companies that make up Disney, they are the states within that country. They are not, again, something in themselves, contained within themselves. They are the equivalent of a state within a country. So, Marvel Studios and Marvel Entertainment are like North Dakota and South Dakota of the country of Disney. That's what they are. And if you look at Marvel Entertainment as if it was a state within a country, and then you look at Marvel Comics, which is a part of that state, well, what is it? Well, first of all, I was thinking about, well, it's like a county or something in the state, but no, what it actually is, what it really looks like, is that it is a civil servant operation in that state. It's your DMV. It's your public library system. It's your registry of deeds. It's your tax office. It's your, what else? It would be, I don't know, your U.S. Postal Service, right? It is your Postal Service within that state. Something, say if the Postal Service was state run instead of federal run, right? So it's the equivalent of a small civil servant operation within this state. That's what Marvel Comics is. That's the amount of influence that it has, and that's the amount of production that it's going to actually produce. That's the level of the mentality of the people who work at Marvel Comics. They are civil servants. That's what they are. Okay? Because they're not like a person of a normal business that you and I would think of. They are the equivalent of civil servants because they work for this civil service, Marvel Comics, which is part of this state, which is Marvel Entertainment, which is part of this country, which is Disney. And we all know that civil servants don't tend to get a lot of work done, nor do they really care about money. And they just keep on chugging along. And I actually know quite a bit about civil service, civil servants and how they work and their structure because I had to take public administration when I was doing my master's. I really didn't want to, but they made me take it. And I had to study civil servants, and really this is what it looks like. I had to study these things, and this is what these people look like, and this is what they act like. These people who are running Disney, or not running Disney, running Marvel Comics right now. They're acting like civil servants. And they're in an industry that looks like a civil servant operation. That's what it looks like. And again, of course, again, as someone who has studied these things, I can tell you right now, I could give you studies that show positively that 100%, if you take a civil servant operation and put it next to a private operation who is doing the exact same things, the private operation is going to outproduce, outsell, outperform the civil servants every time in every way. Because civil servants, I'm sorry if you're a civil servant, but they are inherently lazy, not because that, they're lazy individuals, but since they don't have a really vested interest in their company as much as someone in the normal operations of a private company, there's no reason to work that hard. There's no reason to actually work extra hours, to put in extra effort. There is no reason. They're sitting there in their jobs, and they're pretty secure in their jobs, and they're going to have a nice pension come the end of it, and they're just, some of them, waiting out their time in going through the motions to do what they're told and just get it done, and they don't really care about what they're producing. They really don't. And that's the thing. That's a good description of these people who run Marvel right now. Because, as a civil servant, you can do a good job and try to be promoted, but there's only so far you can be promoted in a civil servant job. You can only go so far, and it's not very much higher above where you began. And so this guy, Jordan White, I think his name was, at Marvel, he can say he doesn't care about money, and, be part of this company still, because that's the level of everybody there. He's got to the higher parts. He's one of the higher ups in Marvel, and he's already made it there. So if you're a low level, you still have some drive in order to move up the ladder a little bit, but he's moved up the ladder, and he's gone as high as he's going to go, and he's still in the civil servant position. So what's the point of him working any harder? What's the point of him actually caring about making money? None whatsoever. And again, in my study of public administration, I was confronted. You're confronted usually, if you study these things, right at the very onset. They ask this question to you and say to you, if you're a person who actually, if you're a person, just a normal civil servant, can you affect any kind of change within the civil servant mechanism in which you work? And the answer to that is a flat out no. Just not even considered. No, you cannot. And if you're one of those people who come into the job all gung-ho because you look at the civil servant job that you're coming into and say that you're the section of the civil servants that you're working for are, not using their production time well, they're not producing the best product, they need to do more and do everything that they can. If you're a person that comes into the civil servant job with the idea of reform in your head, can you actually bring about that reform? And the answer again is no. It's a flat out no. Because by the time you get to climb the ladder to the point where you can actually affect change, the civil servant mechanism has changed you and always will change you so that you don't care about change anymore. It's like, it makes me think of John Carpenter's The Thing, the civil servants, mechanism, it will engulf you and spit a version of you back out, which has the mindset of it rather than you trying to change it. It will change you and you will just become a cog in the machine. And that's what these people at Marvel have become. That's what these people who run Marvel and who are the higher ups at Marvel, that's what they've become. They're just civil servants. And of course, they're never going to really care about the product that they make. They're always just going to follow orders, and their orders are to produce something that will feed into the greater Disney company, the greater Disney country. It will feed into, the greater state, which is Marvel itself, which will feed into the greater country, which is Disney itself. That's all it's ever going to be. And as I had said at the end of my last video, this is why we need to consider Marvel dead. Okay, it is dead as a comic company. The old industry that all of us have known because we've all grown up with DC and with Marvel, these old companies, these way of producing comics, they have died. We're just waiting for the decomposition of the corpses right now. They're dead. And they will never, ever go back to that healthy company that they used to be. You can't take a corpse and reanimate it. It's not going to happen. So if you actually want to have comic books with passion, if you actually want to have comic books that are written well, that are drawn well, that have the passion that you have in yourself for reading them, then you need to find people and companies that are actually going to have that passion themselves. You need to get out of these Marvel and DC civil servant kind of comics, and you need to move into your independent, privately owned company and support these people and look for these people. Because again, a lot of these smaller companies like IDW, like Boom, like Dark Horse, they're trying to sustain the same model as Marvel and DC, and there's no way they can do that. Marvel and DC can do that, and they're probably going to continue to do that for a long time because, of course, they have the giant Disney pot of money and they're feeding into that machine. But the smaller companies, they're going to go broke. They're going to disappear after a while, and I can't see them changing either. I can see some of the small companies actually affecting change and producing in a way that they actually should, like Alterna Comics. But for the most part, you're going to have to look for creators who have a passion and follow them and find out where they are publishing, and if it's an Indiegogo campaign, if it's through Alterna, if it's through some other smaller company, then you follow them. That's how you get good comics. It's no longer I go to my comic shop and I look for something good. It's I go on my social media, I find someone, I find Richard Meyer, I find John Malin, Ethan Van Sciver, Kelsey Shannon, a number of these other comic pros, that have a passion for comic books and want to write good comics, who want to draw good comics, who want to produce a good story and want to produce a good comic. And you find out what they are doing, and then you get these comic books, because that's the only way you're going to get a good comic book that is anywhere even close to the level of what we've been used to if you've lived through the 80s and the 90s, or even the 60s and the 70s. And that's the only way. Because I used to say, when I did great runs, I haven't done a great run video in a while, but I used to say, make comics better by reading better comics. But I'll tweak that a little for this and say, you need to make comics better by associating with people who want better comics. And Marvel and DC don't want better comics. These independent people, they want better comics. They have a passion. Just like you have a passion for reading, just like I have a passion for reading comics, you need to look for that. You need to find that. You need to grab onto that and support these people, because they are the future. They are the living part of the comic industry that will grow and change and be here tomorrow. All right, hopefully I've given you something new to think about. Hit like, hit subscribe if I did give you something new to think about. Leave a comment for me, give me something new to think about, and I don't know if I'll have an actual video up tomorrow. I'm actually going hiking for a couple of days, so I'll see if I can squeeze a couple in today, but if not, you might be missing one for a day, so just to let you know what's going on there. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.